Now that your evaluation is complete, you will receive your official Nexus ID. Please stand over there.
We went back up to the ground floor and into a small room with a camera set up. There was a backdrop on the furthest wall, like the one on picture day at school. Akio told me to go stand in front of the camera for my ID picture, so I walked over there, removing my trench coat in the process. I then quickly adjusted my hair and straightened out my collar. Once I was in position, Akio counted down.
3, 2, 1.
With a flash and a click, it was done. On the other wall was a printer and a computer, which I assumed was for making the IDs.
I'm just going to ask you a few questions for your ID, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Full name, please.
Utsu Sasaki.
Birth date.
July 3rd.
Gender.
Female.
Age.
20.
That should be all. The government requires that I give each member up to 5 stars, 5 being the highest. One can get 6 stars, but that is reserved for the strongest, most strategic people. These ranks mean nothing for the most part. It is just to keep track of what level everyone is at.
What rank am I?
As of right now, I would consider you a 4-star individual, but that doesn't mean you are the best of the best. You certainly could use some training, but I see the real potential in you. You are very powerful when it comes to strength, defense, and your recovery is exceptional. However, you lack strategy and skill, as well as knowledge of your gift in general.
I see. I will do my best to improve myself. If I may ask, what's your rank?
I am a mere 3-star, but that does not mean I am weak by any means. The ranking system is based on your gift and your gift alone.
Why is your rank so low? You beat me by a long shot. Not that there's anything wrong with being a low rank. I was just wondering if there's any reason in particular that it's so low.
The ranking system is a double-edged sword. While it may show how strong your ability is, it also ranks how big a threat you would be to the government. I am a 3-star because I just haven't shown that I can be a threat yet, and I intend to keep it that way.
Oh, I see. Seems like you've really thought things out, Akio.
You really do give me too much credit. I am just keeping my members' best interest at heart. Here you are, Miss Sasaki.
It had been such a long time since anyone took a photo of me. I really hadn't seen myself in such a long time. The photo itself was a decent one, but I wished that I had the time and resources to look better.
In any case, Miss Sasaki, welcome to Nexus.
Thank you. I look forward to... I was cut off by a loud noise coming from my stomach. I mean, it had been a couple weeks since my last proper meal.
It seems to me that you are in need of some food, yes? In that case, I'll have Kazuki and Charlotte take you out for a meal.
On the way into town, Kazuki and Charlotte chatted about various topics, while I sat quietly in the back seat. From the big grin on his face, it seemed as if Kazuki enjoyed spending time with Charlotte. After about 20 minutes or so had passed, we entered the suburbs of Anrik City. The streets were lively, but not packed as they were further inland. Kazuki parked on the street in front of a small American-style diner. Ted's Diner, open 24 hours, could be read on the front sign in big letters. By the sign alone, I could tell that I was in for the meal of a lifetime. Why, you ask? Well, it wasn't part of a franchise for one, but I could tell it just felt like I was at home. Inside the doors, the sweet aroma of food and baked goods filled the air. The smell alone was enough to make my mouth water. To the right, there was a bar filled with various drinks on tap and materials to make all sorts of concoctions. The bar was closed, of course, as it was only late morning. We then sat down at a booth near the front windows. Our waitress was a young woman, not much older than I. Her long curly hair was tied back into a messy bun, with flyaways all over the place. Her bright smile complemented her dark complexion as she placed menus in front of us.
Hi, my name is Kaya. I'll be your server. Can I get anything started for you?
Yes, we'll start with drinks, please. I'll have a black coffee.
May I have some hot tea, please?
Sure thing. What about you, miss?
I'll just have some water, thank you. Kaya reached for the pocket in her apron to pull out a pen, but her hand only found the fabric in her grasp. She fumbled for a few more seconds before she pulled out a pencil and pad of paper from seemingly nowhere.
All right. I'll be right back with these drinks for you, and I'll give you some time to look at the menus.
Is it just me, or do you think that girl has a gift?
What makes you say that?
Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't hear anything in her pocket when she was looking for a pen. Also, if she did have a pen, she wouldn't have taken that long to pull it out.
Could well be possible.
Just then, Kaya came back with trays of food balanced on her palms.
Excuse me, miss, but do you have a gift?
Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
A nervous smile painted her face as she denied Kazuki's claim.
I'm sure you do. Anyway, are you guys ready to order?
What can I get for you guys then?
I'll have 2 eggs over easy, bacon, hash browns, and a blueberry waffle, please.
I'll have the strawberry and chocolate pancakes, please.
I'll just have a parfait, thanks.
So that'll be 1 a la carte, the strawberry chocolate pancakes, and a parfait. I'll get that started for you.
Kaya looked back at us as she walked away with a tense look in her eye. I diverted my attention back to Kazuki, who was fidgeting with a straw wrapper, and Charlotte, who was stirring her drink. Why don't you two tell me about yourselves? When did you join Nexus, and what did you do before?
I was a fashion designer, but I didn't really get to make it big because of an unfortunate accident.
Don't ask. As for me, I want you to guess.
Well, I would imagine you would be at a university given your age, but I don't think so.
You'd be right.
I thought long and hard, twirling my hair between my fingers as I furrowed my brow. Something about Kazuki seemed vaguely familiar. I thought I remembered seeing or hearing his name somewhere, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Then, it hit me. You were a part of Oasis, weren't you?
Ding ding ding! You're correct. How'd you guess? I thought that was the last thing you would have thought of.
When I was younger, before my brother officially joined Oasis, he took me to their headquarters in hopes of getting me to join as well. Somehow your name got brought up in all the conversation or something like that.
Did you happen to meet any other members while you were there?
One, but I can't remember his name or what he looked like. It was such a long time ago. Before Charlotte or Kazuki could respond, Kaya approached our table with plates of food carefully balanced on a tray in her hand. She set each dish down with care as to not tip the plates. We thanked Kaya once again as she walked back into the kitchen. By the look of her face and her various glances at the clock, it seemed that Kaya was at the end of her shift and eager to clock out.
Well, there's no point in letting your food get cold, so dig in.
I could hardly contain myself. I had to restrain my hands from devouring the whole plate of food in one bite. It had been so long since I had had an actual meal. My stomach longed for the feeling of being satisfied. The eggs were perfect. Soft, but the yolk still ran, and the hash browns were crispy with a hint of butter. I grabbed the ketchup bottle off the table and scattered my whole plate with the red condiment.
You sure eat a lot.
Oh, leave the girl be. She probably hasn't eaten anything in a while.
I ignored Kazuki's comment and moved on to the blueberry waffle. It tasted how clouds look, Every bite I took was so light and fluffy. When I cleared my plate, my stomach didn't dare ask for more. I sat there full and satisfied with my meal. It wasn't long until Kaya was back at our table.
All done here?
Yes, thank you very much.
I'll just take these then. Here's your bill. You can pay it at the register whenever you're ready. Thank you for dining with us.
Seems like you're in a hurry to get out of here.
Yeah. It's almost the end of my shift. Since we are open 24 hours, some of the employees have, odd hours. I've been here since 2:30 myself.
Well, I hope you get some well-deserved rest.
Thank you, miss. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Kaya then walked away with the dishes back into the kitchen.
I must say, the uniforms here are as cute as can be. As for your clothes, though, are those the only things you have?
Yeah, I kinda lost everything when I left home, you know?
That won't do. You can't be seen in those rags. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant they could use a little sprucing up.
Before long, Kaya came walking out of the kitchen with her coat and a purse. She waved goodbye to her co-workers and left. It was then I noticed two men in the corner eyeing Kaya as she walked out. They didn't have any menus or even drinks in front of them. The men were big and easily towered over Kaya. One of them had a shaved head, and the other an old leather jacket. Immediately after Kaya walked out the door, they got up and left as well. I got a bad feeling about the situation as I held my stomach. Hey, could we go check on Kaya? I think she's being followed.
I agree. We'll pay the bill. You go on ahead.
Once we got outside, Kaya was nowhere to be found. The streets were nearly empty by this time because everyone who was out had gotten to their destination. I heard a scream not far down the street. It was coming from a small alleyway between the shops and restaurants. I ran over to the source of the scream to find Kaya backed into a corner. She wielded a kitchen knife, and the man with the shaved head was laying on the ground with blood dripping from his arm.
Oh, it's you.
Hey, aren't you related to that Sasaki crook? I bet you're worth even more than this little mouse is.
Oi, just hurry up and do something. We don't got all day.
The man with the shaved head quickly got to his feet, and the man with the leather jacket pulled out a pocket knife.
Forget her. This one will give us more Nova than we can count.
Kaya took this opportunity and struck both of the men in the middle of their backs with a hammer that she pulled out from seemingly nowhere. The man with the shaved head was incapacitated instantly, with the wind knocked out of him. He fell to the ground once more, gasping for air. The man in the leather jacket turned to Kaya to strike, but just before he could, I grabbed his jacket and held him back. Kaya took a swing at the man and made contact with his cheek. Through gritted teeth, the man's anger started to rise. I then signaled Kaya to get out of the alley. Once she had escaped, I threw the man in the leather jacket against the brick wall of the building behind him. Judging by the slight crack I heard from the impact, he wouldn't be getting up for a few minutes. The man with the shaved head had recovered by this time and attempted to punch me while I had lowered my guard. I dodged his attack and quickly punched his gut, followed by an uppercut. This knocked him out cold. I didn't want to engage in a fight any further, so I turned my back to leave the alley. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my right shoulder. I looked to find the man's pocket knife embedded into my flesh. I turned around to see the man with his eyes as wide as dinner plates in disbelief. He expected me to fall in agonizing pain, but I just stood there, the knife still stuck in my shoulder with blood oozing out. You know, that really hurt.
Just what are you?
You want this back, don't you? Then here. Take it. The knife cut through the air as it flew towards the man and landed inches from his head with a thud. After leaving the alley, I met up with Kazuki and Charlotte. Kaya was with them too, and had told him about what had just happened.
Oh my! What happened happened to you? We must get you back to HQ for medical treatment.
Can Kaya come with us?
Why would I want to come with you?
I have a feeling our boss would like to speak with you. You're not busy right now, are you?
I guess not. I'm just a little tired.
From there, we went back to the HQ with Kaya in our company. She had about 1,000,000 questions, so much so that Kazuki told her that Akio would explain everything once we got there.
Miss Sasaki, this is most unusual. I do not recall asking you to recruit any new members.
But Akio, this woman has a gift, and she has proven that...
I don't mean to be rude, but I would like to decline your offer. While it is enticing, I just can't drop everything and live a new life. I have responsibilities to uphold, and I quite like my life as it is.
Oh, I see. My sincerest apologies for bringing you all this way for no reason. My stomach sank and my face turned red from embarrassment. Kaya took notice and put her hand on my back to comfort me.
Don't worry about it. If ever I can be of any help, feel free to contact me.
If that's the case, then I'll let you be on your way, Kaya.
Akio then opened up a portal, which I assume led back to the diner. I gave a sheepish wave to Kaya as she passed through.
Now, Charlotte, would you please show Miss Sasaki to her room? Oh, yes. Before I forget, Miss Sasaki, this is for you. Please use it to contact me or any other Nexus members.
Akio handed me a black smartphone with the organization logo on the back. I carefully tucked the phone in my back pocket as Charlotte led me out of the room. When Charlotte led me away, it felt like she was gonna pull my arm right out of its socket when she practically dragged me through the door. I had never met someone so, enthusiastic about everything. She was definitely hiding something. I just didn't know what. We came upon a long hallway with various doors on either side. Much like a college dormitory, signs with the names of the Nexus members hung on the wall next to the door. This would ensure that no confusion would arise when remembering who was in what room.
This is your lovely room. There is a bathroom at the end of the hall, so you don't have to walk far if you have to go. I'll leave you to get settled. Let me know if you have any questions.
Charlotte practically skipped away as she left me to my room. Once inside, I shut the door and turned to examine my room more closely. It seemed like it was designed specifically for me with my favorite color scheme. Sky blue, lavender, a light gray, and white. Light spilled in from the 3 large windows on the far wall, illuminating those sky blue paint. A soft gray rug laid upon the wood floor with a full-size bed in the corner of the room. On the bed was a lavender and white patterned blanket. Across from the bed was a white desk with a light gray office chair. There was a small closet to the right of the desk, and across from the closet there was a white dresser. The last thing I noticed was a note on said dresser.
Miss Sasaki, welcome to Nexus. I hope everything is to your liking. If it is not, please do not hesitate to tell me. Akio.
I put the note down and took in the space around me. This whole room was mine. All mine. I couldn't help but get excited. It felt like looking out your window and seeing the first snow of winter as a child. I squealed in happiness as I threw myself onto the bed in the corner. The pillows were like fluffy clouds on a warm summer day, and the blankets felt like a warm bath in the freezing months of winter. Meanwhile, in the suburbs of Onrix City, a scarred outcast takes refuge inside a church.
The heavy church doors creaked as I pushed them open. The church was small, quiet, and secluded. The perfect place for me. My footsteps echoed as I made my way to the pews. I had originally come to this city in search of Dr. Gunther M. Engel, a man whom I have a strong distaste for. However, after days of searching tirelessly, I began to wonder if all of my efforts were for naught. The thought of giving up my search had never crossed my mind until now. Even if I did find him, I don't know what I'd do. Sure, I'd try to kill him, but would I be ready for that? My body has grown weak from days without much food or sleep, and my mind grew foggy as my eyes demanded to sleep. I thought maybe I should give up my search, but then all those years of searching would be for nothing.
What are you doing here, my boy?
I sat there in silence, hoping that the priest would leave me alone.
You may not believe it, but all are welcome here.
Thanks. I'll keep that in mind. The priest seemed to jump back as I looked up at him.
Those eyes. You must be. You look like you have been through much. I know of a place that might help you, if you wish to know.
Oh yeah? And what place would that be?
Go to this address and see for yourself.
The priest handed me the stub of a flyer, like those ones you see on the streets that have strips at the bottom that say Take 1. The only thing on the piece of paper was an address, nothing else.
It shouldn't be too far from here. Just a few blocks down the road.
It's not like I had anything better to do, so I started looking for the address on the back of the paper. Little did I know that after I left, that priest had contacted a certain doctor.
Dr. Engler speaking.
A young man in bandages just paid me a visit here at the church. I'm sending him your way, old friend.
Thank you, Father.
Now, about the payment you promised.
Whatever are you talking about? I never promised anything.
Dr. Angele, when did you get here? How did you...
I always know where my favorite subject is. In any case, you have led him straight to me, so I do suppose you deserve some sort of reward.
Thank you, Doctor. I really...
This is your reward. Say hello to that god you never shut up about. I told you before, there is a reason they call me the Angel of Death. Oh dear, it seems I've let one slip away once again. No matter, I have much more important things to attend to. I'm coming for you, Subject 5011.
Akio Inzen speaking. How may I be of your assistance? Boss, it's nice to hear your voice again. I see. A priest was killed by a gifted man with wings. I see. Rest assured, I'm on the case. An abandoned house. Interesting choice, Gunther.
Once I had arrived at the address on the paper, I furrowed my brow in confusion. Surely this wasn't the place. It had to be a joke. Hello? Is anyone home? Hello? Anyone in there? Of course. No one home. Shouldn't trust a shifty priest that gives you a random address in the first place. The door was as sturdy as a dead branch, so naturally it gave way with a single kick. The smell of dust and mold was suffocating. I could feel it in my mouth all the way up to my lungs. I gagged as the particles invaded my throat and coated my tongue. When I finally stopped hacking, I decided to press on. I walked through a partially collapsed doorway and into a long hallway. Family portraits of strangers hung across the long and musty hall. Just by looking at the photos, I started hearing voices from my past. My brother, my father, and my mother. As I walked further down the hall, I noticed a syringe sat in the corner on top of a small wooden table. There was no way that someone just left it there. It was too perfectly placed. Upon closer inspection, I noticed a familiar symbol. The seal of Angelic Labs, a laboratory run by Gunther M. Engel. If he was involved, then I wanted no part in it. As I turned to leave, I noticed a familiar scent of ammonia and cheap soap had filled the air. My palms started to feel clammy. My hair stood on end, and my heart raced faster and faster as I remembered what this scent meant. I had to get out of there as soon as possible, or else I would be caught. I was about to make a run for it when I heard a voice behind me.
Following false leads again, I see. I thought I taught you better than that.
His voice sickened me. What do you want?
Well, what I've always wanted. To bring you home.
That lab of yours is no home.
And you forget, I raised you. I taught you how to read, write, and even fight. I really do want you back.
Yeah, as your lab rat.
Oh, come now. Don't be like that. If you don't want to go back to my lab, why not join Oasis? They could really use someone like you.
No. I'm not going back to you or to Oasis. Not now. Not ever!
Fine. If that's how you want it, I'm going to have to use force.
So be it.
Back at the Nexus HQ, all was quiet and calm until...
Hey, it's Kazuki. Boss has a lead on an Oasis member and wants us to check it out. Meet me in Akio's office as soon as you can.
The bed I was laying in was so soft, so comforting, that I didn't want to get up. But duty called.
Right. See you in a bit.
Akio and Kazuki were waiting for me when I got there. Kazuki stood there, tapping his foot, impatiently while he waited to hear the intel that Akio had on the Oasis member.
According to my sources, the Oasis member had been spotted on the east side of Onrix. I must tend to other matters at the moment, and Charlotte and Honoru are busy, so I'm sending you two to take care of it.
What are we supposed to do when we get there?
I would like you to find out which Oasis member is causing trouble, and detain them and put them in the den if possible. Since I will be away, I will not be able to directly give you a way back. To combat this, send me your coordinates when you need to return home. I can only do this 2 times while I'm away, so use those chances wisely.
Understood.
On the other side, Kazuki and I were met with trees in every direction. We had landed in the middle of a dense forest. Since there was no civilization as far as the eye could see, collateral damage wasn't a priority. For a few minutes, there was only silence. A silence so fragile that even talking or taking a breath would break it. It was then that silence was broken by racing footsteps. As I quickly turned my head towards the noise, I saw 2 figures in the distance, engaged in combat. The first figure was a man, possibly in his early 20s. His skin was a ghostly white to the point where you could easily see his veins. Stitches and cuts covered his face, with 2 beginning at the corners of his mouth, stretching back to his ears. Another horizontally going from cheek to cheek. Messy blood-red hair peeked out from under the hood of his green and blue raglan hoodie, and in his bangs a single blonde highlight. The sleeves of his hoodie were pushed up to reveal that his arms were covered in bandages. Over his eyes sat a pair of black goggles, accompanied by scratched green lenses. The other figure was clearly middle-aged. A light beard upon his chin, neatly groomed, silvery hair slicked back, and eyes like fiery garnet stones. His red button-down reflected the look in his eyes, and round glasses rested on the bridge of his nose, and his lab coat was a crisp white. The young man took one of his large hunting knives from its sheath, and took a swipe at the lab-coated figure, forcing him to look our way. Once the man noticed us, he gave us a worried glance. He gave one last uppercut to his opponent, and disappeared. The bandaged figure stood up like nothing happened, despite just being clocked in the face. The stitches at the corners of his mouth had ripped open, but no blood seeped out. He looked over in my direction, and our eyes met. His bright emerald eyes seemed to stare right through my soul. The bandaged figure then pulled out a needle and sutures from his pocket. He then proceeded to stitch up his mouth, and then he just walked away.
We've got to get out of here. If it wasn't him, I would gladly try to engage. I don't know who the other guy was, but the man in the lab coat was Dr. Gunther M. Engel. He's Oasis's physician, but he does other unholy things in his spare time.
The portal appeared in front of us with a flash. I was about to step into the portal with Kazuki in front of me when I felt a bandaged hand over my mouth. Kazuki was already through the portal when he had realized what had happened and reached for my outstretched hand. Just before he could reach my hand, the portal closed. I struggled to free myself from my captor's grasp, but to no avail. All of a sudden, the man whispered something into my ear.
Somnium, Noctis, Ignis.
With those words, I felt the world around me melt away into darkness as my eyes fell shut. I soon found myself walking in a familiar place. In my dream, I wandered for a bit, and then I saw him. My brother. He had a smile upon his face, like when we were kids. I ran toward him and reached out with tears of happiness rolling down my cheeks. Then, everything turned gray. I looked at Koro with a face of horror. His mind was no longer his own, and his eyes were filled with a power that couldn't be explained. My first instinct was to fight, and without thinking, I killed him. I killed him with a single strike. The next moment, I felt something on my hands. It was thick and had a slight metallic smell. I looked down to see my hands covered in my brother's blood. Suddenly, I awoke from the dream to a rushing wind on my face. I was being carried by the man from earlier. His bright green eyes stared at me with an animalistic infatuation.
So, you're finally awake.
I struggled to get away in his arms, not because I was afraid, but because I was in an uncomfortable position. The man did not struggle to keep me in place and put me down with ease. I stared into the face of my kidnapper and realized that he didn't have any murderous intent. If he wanted to kill me, I'm sure he would have done so already.
You're not scared of me? How peculiar.
What's so peculiar about it?
Well, it's because Never mind about that. Your brother has a dark entity inside him, yeah?
I never told you that. How did you...
That's none of your concern.
The man stared at me with curiosity as he circled me, tilting his head to one side then the other. It reminded me of a cat. This extended not only to his behavior, but physically as well. His pupils were vertical slits, his teeth sharpened, and his nails were long and came to a point.
Why were you fighting that man earlier?
He's the one that did this to me. I will stop at nothing to make sure that I am the one that ends his life. That is why I am looking for the Oasis headquarters.
As the man spoke, his words were laced with anger and hatred. It reminded me of my brother all those years ago. The way he spoke felt vaguely familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
Oh, okay then. Why don't you come with me? I know of a place that might help.
I'll pass. Last time someone said that to me, well, it didn't go well. If that's all you wanted to say, then I have no use for being here anymore. Goodbye.
The stranger turned to walk away, but I still had questions for him. I opened my mouth to say something when I heard the sound of Akio's portal appearing behind me. A hand from the other side then clutched my arm and pulled me through. With a split-second decision, I grabbed the hood of the stranger's jacket, taking him with me. On the other side, I landed on the ground with a thud. Soon, I realized that I was surrounded by all the Nexus members in front of the HQ.
Are you hurt? Did he do anything to you?
I'm fine. Please, don't hurt him. Everyone started yelling, and I didn't know what to do. The man I had brought with me was being held down by Kazuki as he tried to get away, and all I could do was just stand there.
I know who this guy is. He was on the news years ago. Something about a murder. This is a guy who's taken countless lives.
I have never killed anyone.
Then why do you look like a serial killer?
In the heat of the moment, I thought about what Nexus was at its core. They were nothing more than a group of bounty hunters.
And what about you guys, huh? You're only in this organization for your own selfish reasons. Maybe you deserve to be experimented on by the government. It would certainly do this whole city a favor since you haven't gotten any closer to fulfilling your one and only purpose!
I wasn't thinking as words came spilling out of my mouth. It was just that so much had happened within the last day, I didn't have time to process it. From running into my brother to being thrown in an unfamiliar environment, it was all just beginning to become too much. I'm sorry. Their cold and wounded expressions were too much for me. I ran for the door and eventually out into the woods that surrounded the Nexus HQ. By this time, the sun was setting, and the sky was an array of warm and cool colors. I wiped away the tears that welled up in my eyes as I ran. Soon, I came upon a rather large hollowed-out oak tree. The hole at the bottom was just big enough for me to squeeze myself into. Inside the tree, there was just enough room for me to prop myself up against the trunk with my knees to my chest. I started hearing the voices of Kazuki, Anaru, and Charlotte in the distance. I didn't want to see them. It wasn't long until I started to doze off, and the voices of everyone around me started fading away.
Back at the HQ, I was having the time of my life.
I know you did something. What did you do to her?
I didn't do anything to her. Now get the hell off of me!
Somehow I managed to throw Koski off of my back. Next thing I knew, everyone in the room went to take me down. And I was only trying to free myself to escape.
Stop! You've only just met this boy and you treat him like he's nothing but a rat.
From seemingly nowhere, a man wearing a black suit walked in the room. His superior gaze made the others retreat.
Boss, he's the one who kidnapped Utsu.
I know that. Anaru, please take him to the basement and make sure he's comfortable. Kazuki and Charlotte, go find Utsu and make sure she gets here safely.
Without warning, I started to lose consciousness. It was almost as if I was being pushed to the back of my mind while someone forced their way inside. When I came to, I woke up to the sound of a plate being slid across the floor. After glancing at the eggs and bread on the plate, I looked up to see none other than Koski, an ex-Oasis member.
I thought you were a part of Oasis.
I was. Then I got tired of being around that prick.
Who? Just then, Koski's phone started to ring.
Hello? Yeah, I'm on my way. Well, see you around, I guess.
After Koski left, I looked around the room and took in my surroundings. The door was made of a thick glass, bulletproof, I assumed, for obvious reasons. The other walls were made of reinforced concrete painted white to fit the rest of the room. Despite the circumstances, I hadn't stayed in a place this nice in a long time, with a bed, food, and the warmth of the lights above. There wasn't anything more I could ask for.
When my eyes fluttered open, it was still dark out. I heard the sound of footsteps, and it turned out I was being carried on Kazuki's back. I asked where we were going. Kazuki said we were heading towards the HQ.
You look tired. Have you been up all night?
You could say that.
You didn't have to come searching for me, you know.
I have my reasons. Reason number one, I couldn't be responsible for a runaway recruit. Akio would have my head for it. Reason number two, we all understood that you must have been under a lot of stress. Yes, your words did hurt a little, but that's beside the point.
What happened to that guy?
Who?
The guy who I pulled through the portal with me.
Oh, him. He is currently being held in the den.
I see. You can put me down now. I can walk on my own.
We didn't really say anything after that, and I felt awful about what I had said the previous day. And soon we found ourselves back at the door of the HQ. I started feeling something familiar, the feeling where I wanted to hide and never come out.
Hey, it's going to be okay.
When the doors opened, I saw Anaru and Charlotte waiting for me. I couldn't bear to look them in the eye, so I bowed my head in shame.
Kazuki has filled me in on everything that happened.
Akio remained silent and stared at me.
My sincerest apologies. Please, forgive me.
You may get up now, Miss Sasaki. All is forgiven. We understand that your life just changed in a matter of moments, and that you might need time to process.
I lifted my head up to meet Akio's smiling face. I would have burst out in tears of relief if I hadn't been so tired.
Now, I hear you brought someone back from your mission.
With all due respect, if I may request some time alone.
Of course. Take all the time you need.
Yeah, we'll be right here for you when you wake up.
On the way to my room, I noticed an attic door. My curiosity got the best of me, and in the end, I went to check it out despite my tired state. I opened the door to find a completely empty space. The only things that occupied the attic were the support beams and pillars. On the far wall, I noticed a large window, and after closer inspection, I found that the window opened out to the roof. I saw a place just outside the window that was flat enough to sit on, so I made my way there. I sat down on the cold shingles of the massive roof and took a deep breath. It was in these times that I missed my brother the most. We were always there for each other, no matter what. To see him with that thing inside him, it broke my heart. However, when he's not with me, I sing our mother's lullaby. Hush, my dear, let me wipe away your tears. Let the gears of the book unwind. In your mind, go back through time. Back to those better days. Dear sister, should we ever be apart, know that I'm with you in your heart. Dear sister, be strong for me, and you will see we'll meet again. I started to think about the day when my brother and I were separated from each other. It was the day I lost everything. My home, my parents, my brother. When the sun started to rise, I decided that it would be best to get some real sleep. So I went back inside. My feet felt heavy as I slunk to my room. I closed the shades and was ready to fall onto bed when I noticed a pile of folded clothes and a note on the dresser.
I thought you would want something to sleep in, so I made you these.
I unfolded the clothes to find a set of pajamas. Unlike the rest of my room, the fabric of the clothes were dark and bold. The short-sleeved top was a dark indigo, just like my hair, and the shorts that accompanied it were jet black and made of a soft material. I would have to thank her in the morning. I quickly changed into the pajamas and turned off the light. Then I proceeded to jump into bed in the corner. As I landed, I wrapped myself in the blanket. This was another luxury that I hadn't had in such a long time. While I slept, I dreamt of that day 6 years ago. The sun had not risen yet when it happened. That night, rain pounded on the roof, demanding to be let in. Cora and I had just turned 14 the day before, so my mind was filled with nothing but happy thoughts of my family and the time we spent laughing together. I slept peacefully in my room, unaware of what was happening just down the hall. I woke up with a jolt, my heart racing and my eyes watering. I got out of bed, wiping my clammy hands on the sheets, and reached in the darkness to find my doorknob. Eventually, I found the metal knob, but something was off. It was unnaturally cold, especially for the warm summer nights. I opened the door to find nothing out of the ordinary, but something still felt off. Suddenly, I heard a noise from my parents' room. My first instinct was to check it out, but my body was frozen in place. I decided it was best for me to go back to bed. Surely that noise that came from down the hall was nothing. Even if it was something, my parents would be able to fight it off, right? No, I had to check it out. What kind of daughter would I be if I didn't? I rushed down the hall and burst into my parents' room without another thought. The smell of death spilled out the room as soon as the door opened. I covered my mouth to keep myself from screaming. I saw my father laying on the floor, blood pooling all around him. The light of the moon illuminated my mother's body, who lay peacefully in bed.
Utsu.
I looked over my shoulder to see Koro with tears in his eyes. Without warning, he pulled me into a tight embrace. He shook as his grasp tightened to the point where I gasped for air.
Koro, I can't breathe.
He let go immediately, leaving a red substance behind on my shirt. When I looked at Koro again, he was covered in the same shade of red. I stared in horror as I realized what he had done.
Did you do this?
I'm sorry. It wasn't me, I swear. It was him.
Koro grabbed my shoulders, slightly shaking me.
Who?
He then dropped to his knees and buried his face in his hands, sobbing. The Koro I knew would never do anything like this. He was always so sweet and caring. Even if he got mad, he would never take it out on anyone else. I knelt down to comfort him, because I knew that something was very wrong. I put my hand on his back to let him know that I was there for him, when suddenly, Koro went silent. Not even his breath could be heard when just a minute ago, he was near hyperventilating.
Hey, are you okay? Talk to me.
Utsu, you need to get out of here. Go to the city.
No, I need to help you. I can't just leave you here like this.
Yes, you can, and you will. You have to.
But...
Go now!
When Koro looked up to meet my gaze, the whites of his eyes had turned black, and his iris glowed a ghostly blue. The panic in his voice frightened me. I had never seen him like that. Soon my heart started to race as I jumped to my feet. In my haste out the door, I grabbed a pair of boots that sat against a wall. I ran out into the pouring rain, not knowing where to go. I scanned the area for any signs of life, but the streets remained silent. I ran down the street to one of my neighbor's houses and banged on the door. I begged to be let in, but nobody answered. I did the same thing to the whole block, but got the same response. This was troublesome because my neighborhood was full of dogs, but not a single one of them barked or alerted their owners. I turned away from the last house on the block, only to be met with Koro standing behind me.
It's no use calling for help. Everyone is gone.
Just what are you trying to gain from all of this? Just who? Who are you?
I'm the one that will make your brother's wish come true. And his wish is to see you dead. Even if it is you, his wish is my command.
Without warning, Koro grabbed my throat and threw me into the street, knocking the wind out of me. I laid there, gasping for air, as I tried to crawl away. All of a sudden, I felt Koro step on my back, pinning me to the rocky road.
Why aren't you fighting back? You're supposed to be stronger than this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Stop lying to me.
He then grabbed my hair and forced my spine into the ground. Instantly, he wrapped his hands around my throat. I clawed at his wrists as he tightened his grip.
Koro, please. Stop.
The next moment, Koro jumped to his feet, releasing me from his grasp. I was on the brink of passing out when the air was finally returned to my lungs.
What's going on with you?
His tear-filled eyes were that of the brother I knew. He stood there in silence, trying to find words.
There's not much time. I need to do something before he comes back. This was supposed to be the last resort, but we have no other choice.
What are you talking about?
You don't need to know right now. Here, take this.
Koro grabbed my arm and dropped a locket into my hand. Its silver chain was thick and able to survive the rough everyday wear. The locket itself was round and ornate, with an unknown language inscribed all over it.
Take this and protect it with your life. Don't ever let it leave your sight, and never take it off unless you absolutely have to.
Why? What's in it?
No, you must not open it. Not ever.
Why can't you just tell me?
Because if you knew, then you could not protect it. Now, there is one last thing I have to do.
Koro, I'm scared. What is all of this? Why now?
Utsu, my dear sister, all will be explained in due time. For now, please forgive me for what I'm about to do.
Koro held me still as he dug his fingers into my left eye, his arms wrapped around me. I writhed in pain as my left eye was removed from my
Et
skull.
participes cum te virtutem meam.
Light started to swirl all around us. Immense pressure circled the air as Koro reached for his own eye and dug his fingers into the socket. I stood there in horror as blood started to drip down his face. I was too terrified to notice that the eye Koro held in his hand was glowing with a mystic aura. Just then, something entered my empty socket, and all the pain ceased to exist. The light and pressure dissipated with a shockwave that crumbled the houses around us. I found out later that the damage had reached the edge of our small town. When I opened my eyes, Koro was laying on the ground. His dark hair had turned into a snow white. The burning sensation I had in my chest spread like a wildfire. The pain brought me to my knees in a matter of seconds. The puddle of water that sat under me revealed that my left eye had been turned black with an ancient blue symbol where the iris should be. And just like my brother, my hair had also turned into a milky white.
What have you done? You idiot! What have you done? How am I supposed to grant your wish without my full power? My eye. Give it back! Give it back now!
In a single bound, Koro had his hands around my throat once again. His grip tightened as I tried to peel them away. My nails dug into his forearms, breaking the skin and leaving shallow cuts. Then it was almost like something took over my body.
Burnexum, anime nostre dormi.
Those words spilled out like an incantation, and in an instant, a similar burst of light swirled around me. After a short moment, the light brushed into Koro's body. This ceased his attack. Koro's eyes rolled into the back of his head, and his body went limp. I had no idea what I had just said, but at the time, I only hoped that my brother would be okay. I sat there as the rain drummed on my back. Where was I to go from there? My hometown had been reduced to rubble. My parents were dead. In fact, everyone I knew was dead. I had little experience outside of my hometown of Osiris. I thought that a good start would be to get Koro to a safe place. Somewhere that he would be safe for the time being. And the only place I could think of was Oasis. And that was the last place I wanted to take him. Alas, I had no other choice. The rain soaked my clothes while I dragged Koro to what had remained of our house. I sifted through the rubble in hopes of finding more suitable clothes. My t-shirt and athletic shorts weren't exactly ideal as the nights grew cold. I ended up finding a white button-down, part of my school uniform, and a pair of black jeans. I also found my mother's gray trench coat and a teal scarf that once hung on the coat rack by the front door. It took us the rest of the night to get to the Oasis HQ. My legs had almost gave out when I finally reached the door. After knocking, a boy with crimson hair answered the door and took Koro from my back. He seemed rather worried about the both of us, but I don't really remember what he looked like, because every ounce of energy had been drained from my body. I only remember that he could be trusted to take care of my brother. He invited me inside, but I didn't want to stay because I thought that whatever Koro had inside him would come after me. As I turned to leave, the boy stopped me.
If you ever need anything, find me, and I'll be at your service.
With those words, I left the Oasis HQ and lived on the streets, fending for myself. That is, until now. Hello, hello! Thank you for listening to Nexus Gifts and Gods. I'm Atsu, YiLan, creator and voice of Utsu. This episode wouldn't be possible without our talented cast, such as Alex Mitz as our soon-to-be-named stranger, Richard Weber as Akio, Dustin Von Nguyen as Koro, and Craig Williams as Kazuki. All of their links will be in the description below. Please go give them the love they deserve. They've earned it. Did you know that this project has a whole website filled with concept art, illustrations, and even music? Step into the world of Nexus, where all the hard work that has gone into it is truly a gift from the gods. You can also find other sorts of concept art on my social media almost anywhere at Atsu YiLan. That's ATSUYILAN, Atsu YiLan. I also post updates about the project in general. That includes release dates and updates within production. And that being said, I want to do so much with this project, and I hope you'll join me for the journey ahead. And thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.